Hi, this facilitation is Gender and Creativity, Chapter 17 in Handbook of Gender Research and Psychology. The facilitators are Rachel Staggs and Jennifer Westrick. The authors introduce the topic of gender and creativity by describing how human cognition can be biased and unreliable. The quick way that the human brain categorizes information can lead one to making generalizations. We need to be aware of this when we make judgments about gender, ethnicity, or similar groupings. The authors also help us to recognize generalizations made when comparing women to men and distinguishing between creative potential and creative performance. Our first slide discusses the issues of bias against women and the generalization that women are not as creative as men. In our history, women have been denied resources and recognition for their creative endeavors. Creative women have had a lack of support, which includes emotional, social, financial, and artistic. Some examples are women writers who had to use men pen names to be published. Some creative women like Zelda Fitzgerald were committed to asylums. Others like Plath and Woolf committed suicide, and others such as O'Keeffe and Alcott had to choose careers over motherhood. Even Marie Curie, who won 2 Nobel Prizes, was not elected to the French Academy of Science until after her husband had died, and then she was allowed to fill his place. Torrance and Maslow observed problems within creative studies that deal with gender differences in creativity. They both noticed that women mostly express creativity in their lifestyles rather than products, such as in decorating homes, inventing recipes, raising families, developing methods to balance careers and family. There has been a tendency to emphasize creative products recognized by society as criteria of creativity. Many women have expressed their creativity in ways that are not recognized in a product that gains public recognition. The authors also state that creative potential is less likely to blossom if the creative achievement is not supported and encouraged. In the article, the authors say that depending on cultural traditions and historical trends, independent creative thinking has often been encouraged for some groups and discouraged for others. The examples that they gave in the article said that levels of resources and support offered to women in the Japanese culture depended on what the dominant religious ideologies of the time were. In the Middle East, poor girls were not given the same opportunities as more affluent girls. Another study argues that women place more emphasis on the importance of the creative process rather than on a tangible outcome. And society tends to place creative value on products. When women can produce creative products, they are usually judged by men. In another study by Harris, evidence showed that men and women showed preferences for different shape and color schemes. This difference in preference lessens the odds that a female will receive a favorable review from a male critic.
This reading discussed gender differences in divergent thinking, starting with telling us that divergent thinking tests are meant to include open-ended questions with more than one answer, verbal and figural activities, and score creative potential based on fluency, which is the number of ideas given in the allotted amount of time, flexibility, which is the number of conceptual categories or themes in their ideas, kind of like the variety of their ideas, originality, which is uniqueness of their ideas, and degree of elaboration, how detailed or extensive their ideas were. There was no statistically significant gender difference in creative potential based on these tests, but in 1/3 of 80 studies over 50 years, girls' scores were higher than boys' scores on these divergent thinking tests. Ruskin's study found that 2/3 of the 41 studies had girls scoring higher in figural and verbal tests, thus performing better in divergent thinking. In a Canadian study, these other ones had been in the US, girls also scored higher in the verbal and figural Torrance tests of creative thinking in 3 of the 4 results. Another study by Tagano and Morin found boys' scores higher from the multidimensional stimulus fluency measure. Ultimately, All of these studies resulted in that there are mixed data and gender differences from multiple alternate methods of assessment, and researchers are very curious as to whether or not metacognitive skills have given girls an advantage, which is the ability to be aware of what you do and don't know. A study by Helson was of characteristics of gifted women in Mills College, two different graduating classes of 1958 and 1960. Creative women were found to be typically organized around an interest pattern, driven by power motives, and relate themselves to a social identity like arts or sciences or another discipline. Helson found that the most creative women had the reliable markers of openness, unconventionality, resilience, and motivation. Helson believes that there is not a specific creative personality that lends people to be more creative, but that different characteristics, not personalities as a whole label, may indicate giftedness no matter if just one characteristic or more than one are evident, and that these characteristics are shown in different genders in different ways. So in one gender, these characteristics may be shown positively, and in another gender, some of these characteristics might be shown negatively. Bayer's examination of the effects of impending external evaluation on creative performance revealed that girls alter creative behaviors to meet the expectations of others more than boys do. So they will be more or less creative based on what they think they are being evaluated on compared to boys that are reacting in that way. Girls showed lower creative production when they knew they were being evaluated. And in conclusion of the study, gender differences in creativity may reflect inter- and intrapersonal expectations like the want to please others. Cheriton and Snellbecker found creative men identify more with calling themselves clever and women calls themselves more mannerly. Russ discovered that primary process thinking is more creative in men and is less governed by logic, social rules, or reality in their first reactions to different situations. Results of these studies showed that personality differences are more negatively perceived in men, while creative women strive to meet social expectations, which is why you might not see these negative creative characteristics. Categorizations lead to expectations. Men and women can both be creative under the right circumstances. If you are setting someone up to foster their creativity, then they will most likely rise to the occasion, whereas if you are not expecting them to be creative, then they probably won't be. Parents should encourage flexible gender roles and creative performance at home so that neither gender thinks that creativity is simply a other gender quality and that it can be expressed in both genders. Self-actualization, nonconformity to expectations based on gender or traditions is strongly associated with creativity in androgynous individuals due to their flexibility with their own personal expectations or even gender. There is not one style of learning that is correlated with creativity, as stated earlier. Creativity is all about being flexible, and so creativity does not have to only be people who have this one learning style. It can be shown through many learning styles and many different characteristics. There are stereotype-based expectations, like that women are less creative than men, which could lead individuals and teachers to downplay creative potential if they believe in this bias.
Okay, here are our discussion questions. You may pick 2 of them to discuss in the facilitation discussion area. I'll also post them in the discussion area. And here are our references. Thanks for listening.